Hi, I'm sorry, Saris, and let me just... That's better. Today's video is going to be on the shorter side, so I can save some energy for Smogus, but I still wanted to do something a little bit challenging, so I'm going to be making illustrations using 3 random colors. This idea was inspired by some videos by Drawing with Waffles, where she does a similar thing, but with markers. So if you're looking for more of this kind of challenge, I definitely recommend those. Now let's start the process. Okay, welcome to my laptop screen. This is the random hex code color generator on random.org, and we're going to be getting some colors. I'll be doing 2 illustrations, so I'll be generating 6 colors in total. And I think I'll allow myself to use solid black just in case I want to do line art, but we'll see. And now I'll just close my eyes and press this button 3 times. This is a pretty interesting color palette. I think the bright magenta with the more natural colors will be pretty fun to work with. Now I'll generate the next palette. Wow, I'm definitely thinking something with plants. And you know what the heck, why don't we do one more? Ooh, I really like these colors actually. Very bright and fun looking. And now, all that's left to do is to get to work on the illustrations. Before I made the illustration for the first palette, I started out with some thumbnails, which, if you don't know, are these small sketches with very little detail. They basically help you to decide on composition without having to draw every element fully. The palette was giving me very Neapolitan ice cream vibes, and I thought something ice cream related could make for a fun theme. My thumbnails were of someone tripping while holding ice cream, this ice cream mountain, and this giant stack of ice cream with a bunch of different flavors. I went with the last idea because I felt like it had the most potential. At this point, I switched over to a canvas with a taller aspect ratio, so sorry if the recording looks weird like this. Like I mentioned while getting the palettes, I plan to use line art for these, so I started on that after refining the sketch. I'm allowing myself to use gradients or any brush with a transparent effect as long as my selected color is from the palette. Unfortunately, Procreate doesn't have a gradient tool, so I usually make a block of one color, put a Gaussian blur on it, and then blend it out. Even though I like drawing sweets, I haven't ever sat down to seriously draw ice cream. And it turns out it's kinda hard to draw. At least for me. I was having trouble getting the texture to look right. For the background, I chose the city scene, and at the time I thought the pink would make for a good color for the light of a sunset, but it ended up looking a little strange because of how saturated it is. If I was choosing the colors for this scene myself, I would probably go for more of a reddish pink. Honestly, I don't know if I would have chosen any of these colors. One change I made from the sketch was making the character look more cartoonishly shocked. I did try drawing it seriously, but I didn't think it matched the silliness of the ice cream tower. After that, I also tweaked the way I was drawing the buildings to look more bendy. It's like the ice cream is distorting time and space. Here's the finished illustration. Overall, I think it turned out okay, especially for the first one of this video. I do feel like I relied too much on line art though, so the colors didn't really get the full opportunity to shine. On to illustration number 2. Looking at this color palette, the first 2 greens felt very vegetation-ish. But the third one seemed a lot more unnatural to me because of how bright it was, so it made me want to do something more eerie with this illustration. My first thumbnail was this little scene with a bunch of dryads. I think I was picturing them playing a game. My second drawing was just someone lying on a hill looking up at the sky, so not super interesting. I ended up going with the last thumbnail again. It's the scarecrow character in a field with an ominous crow. I liked how the brighter foreground kind of made it look like the scene was being lit up by a flashlight. To avoid using too much line art like in the last illustration, I decided to use no lines at all. So after transferring the thumbnail to a bigger canvas, I just went straight in with color. I wanted the texture of the brush I was using to come through. It has a very frayed look to it, which was perfect for the leaves in the field. I thought about adding some lighting to the scarecrow, but I thought it took away from the silhouetted look, so I just left it like that. Here's the finished illustration. It's not super complex, but I had fun with it, and it took me less time than the first one, so that's a plus. Definitely an easier palette to work with, and I think the grades go together well. For the last random colors of the video, I forgot to record the thumbnails. But it's not a huge loss, because I only did two. The first one is of a girl wearing a very floral-shaped outfit. I was picturing a dress design based around the nasturtium plant, which has some pretty similar colors to this palette. I thought there wasn't much narrative with this illustration, so I moved on to the second thumbnail. The red and orange really reminded me of koi fish, so I drew this mermaid chilling in a koi pond. I'd liked this idea, but when working on the actual illustration, I ran into a lot of problems. Since I was working with lines again, I wanted an effect where the above water elements, like her head and lily pad, had more solid lines. And then the lines below the pond surface would be more disconnected and the color would be more rough. I thought this would give a cool illusion of a separation between the surface and the deeper water. But it just ended up looking messy since the lines of their body intersected with the lines of the ripples. I also didn't like how muddy everything looked. The orange actually blended okay with the green, but the red looked really bad. So I scrapped the version with the line art and started over. This time I used the red for some rougher line art, and since I was ditching the black, I decided to allow myself to use white. Anyway, I'm glad I added white because it was way easier to make the ripples look like part of the water. I also cropped the canvas in closer. I felt like there wasn't enough going on the other side to justify keeping it in, and this way I could focus in on the character. To talk more about the merperson in the drawing, Merson? I changed the design to have a little more separation between the hair-like parts, and I gave them ear fins. They looked a little too much like Octodad in the first illustration, so these additions hopefully make them read as more fish-like. As for why they're hanging out in a koi pond, I kind of like the idea that they got so hungry that they clawed their way into someone's pond. And in this picture, they're just about to snap up one of the koi. Here's the finished drawing. I went a little messier with this one because I like the brush texture and thought it matched the watery mood. It's probably not for everyone, but I like this much more than the other version, and I'm glad I restarted. I definitely feel like I learned a lot from all of these drawings. That brings us to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. This video was more experimental for me in terms of illustration technique and video making, so I hope it was still fun to watch. And with that, I'll see you next Saturday. Bye!